The sun shone brightly over London as the city buzzed with excitement. A special event was about to take place, one that would be remembered for years. At Wellington Barracks, soldiers moved with purpose, preparing for the grand ceremony. Today was no ordinary day. It was a day to honor Princess Catherine with a royal salute. The news had spread quickly. People from all walks of life were eager to witness this important event. It wasn't just a military tradition. It was a moment of deep respect, one that connected the past with the present. The barracks, home to some of the finest soldiers in the British Army, stood tall and proud. The soldiers, dressed in their perfectly pressed uniforms, rehearsed their movements over and over again. Every step had to be perfect. Every command had to be followed with precision. Captain James Harrow, a man known for his discipline and dedication, watched over the preparations carefully. He had led many such events before, but this one felt different. This was for Princess Catherine, a member of the royal family who was loved by the people. Everything had to be flawless. Beside him stood Lieutenant Oliver Finch, a young officer full of energy, but also nervous. It was his first time being part of such a grand occasion, and he didn't want to make any mistakes. Remember, this is about honor and tradition. Captain Harrow reminded the troops. Princess Catherine expects perfection, and we shall deliver it. The soldiers nodded in agreement. They knew the importance of this day. The royal family had a long-standing relationship with the military, and this event was a symbol of that connection. Every soldier standing in the barracks had sworn loyalty, not just to their country, but also to the royal family. As the final rehearsals took place, the atmosphere grew tense. The sounds of marching boots echoed through the open grounds. The military band practiced their tunes, ensuring every note was played to perfection. The gun salute team prepared their cannons, making sure they would fire at the exact right moment. Beyond the barracks, citizens gathered near the gates, hoping to catch a glimpse of the princess. Reporters set up their cameras, ready to capture the moment. Even the younger recruits, who were not part of the main event, stood at a distance, admiring the hard work and dedication of their seniors. The clock ticked closer to the grand arrival. A royal motorcade had been arranged, and soon, Princess Catherine would be here. Inside the barracks, a quiet sense of pride filled the air. Every soldier knew they were part of something much bigger than themselves. They were part of history. Captain Harrow took a deep breath and looked around. Everything was in place. Now, all that remained was for the princess to arrive. The ceremony was about to begin, and Wellington Barracks stood ready to welcome her with the honor she deserved. The soldiers at Wellington Barracks continued their final preparations, their faces showing both focus and excitement. Everything had to be perfect. The royal salute was not just about standing in line or following commands. It was about discipline, respect, and honoring a tradition that had been followed for generations. Captain James Harrow walked along the rows of soldiers, inspecting their uniforms and posture. His sharp eyes noticed even the smallest details. A loose button, a slightly tilted cap, nothing escaped his attention. He wanted his unit to be flawless when Princess Catherine arrived. Beside him, Lieutenant Oliver Finch stood at attention, feeling the weight of responsibility on his young shoulders. This was his first time taking part in such a grand ceremony, and he didn't want to disappoint his captain or his fellow soldiers. "All of you, listen carefully," Captain Harrow spoke in a firm but steady voice. "Today, we are not just soldiers. We are representatives of our country, of our traditions. This royal salute is not just for the princess. It is for the people watching, for history itself." The soldiers nodded, their backs straightening with pride. They knew the importance of this moment. It was not every day that they had the chance to stand before a member of the royal family. Each of them had trained for years to be part of such a prestigious event, and today was their chance to show their dedication. At the far end of the parade ground, the band was making its final preparations. The brass instruments gleamed under the morning sun, and the drummers tightened their drum heads. The music had to be played with precision, each note ringing clearly through the air. Every soldier knew that the sound of the band set the mood for the entire event. It had to be perfect. In another corner of the barracks, the gun salute team was ready. Their cannons stood tall, polished to a shine. They had rehearsed the timing of the 41-gun salute repeatedly, ensuring that each shot would be fired at the exact right moment. The deep booms of the cannons would echo across the city, a symbol of honor and tradition. Meanwhile, outside the barracks, a crowd had started to gather. People of all ages stood near the gates, hoping to catch a glimpse of Princess Catherine. Some held small Union Jack flags, while others had their cameras ready. The excitement was growing with every passing minute. Lieutenant Finch took a deep breath, his heart pounding slightly. He looked at his fellow soldiers, all standing tall, their eyes filled with determination. He knew that this day would be one he would never forget. Then, a signal came from the main gate. A royal motorcade was approaching. The princess was near. Captain Harrow gave one last glance at his troops before taking his position. The time had come. Wellington Barracks was ready. The royal salute was about to begin. The sound of approaching vehicles filled the air as the royal motorcade neared Wellington Barracks. The soldiers stood at full attention, their postures straight, their expressions serious. No one moved, no one spoke. They were ready. The black royal car slowed down as it entered the gates. The golden emblem on its side gleamed under the bright sunlight. The anticipation in the air was almost electric. Everyone present, soldiers, officers, and even the onlookers outside, felt the importance of this moment. The car came to a smooth stop in front of the parade ground. A royal attendant quickly stepped forward, opening the door with practiced grace. And then, stepping out with elegance and poise, was Princess Catherine. She was dressed in a beautifully tailored outfit, the kind that balanced simplicity with royal grace. Her warm smile and calm presence instantly commanded respect. Though she had attended many formal events, she carried herself with the same humility and kindness that had made her beloved by so many people. As soon as she stepped onto the barracks ground, the commanding officer gave the order. Present arms. In perfect unison, the soldiers lifted their rifles in salute. The sound of synchronized movement filled the silent parade ground. Princess Catherine acknowledged them with a gentle nod, her eyes scanning the disciplined formation in front of her. Captain James Harrow stood at the front, his chest swelling with pride. He had trained these men, prepared them for this very moment. Everything was going exactly as planned. Beside him, Lieutenant Oliver Finch felt his heart race. Standing so close to royalty was an overwhelming experience, but he reminded himself to stay focused. Princess Catherine walked gracefully along the front row, inspecting the soldiers with keen interest. She paused occasionally, taking in their discipline and the precision of their stance. Each soldier remained perfectly still, their gaze fixed straight ahead. As she continued, the national anthem began to play. The military band, standing to the side, filled the air with a powerful and familiar melody. The princess stood tall, her hands clasped in front of her, paying full respect to the moment. The soldiers held their salute, their expressions unwavering. Beyond the barracks, the gathered crowd watched in admiration. Some held their phones high, recording the once-in-a-lifetime event. Others simply stood in awe, appreciating the grand display of tradition and respect. When the anthem ended, there was a moment of silence before the next command was given. Royal salute, fire. And then, the first cannon blast rang out. A deep, thunderous boom shook the air. The sound echoed across the barracks, rolling over the city like a great wave. It was the first of 41 shots, each fired with precision and exact timing. Princess Catherine remained composed, watching the gun salute with quiet admiration. She understood the meaning behind it, a tribute of the highest order. The ceremony was in full motion now, and every eye remained fixed on the moment unfolding before them. The first cannon blast had echoed through the barracks, its deep sound rolling across the open grounds. As the smoke cleared, the soldiers remained perfectly still, their expressions unwavering. They knew that each shot was part of a long-standing tradition, a mark of honor given only on the most important occasions. Princess Catherine stood tall, her eyes fixed on the ceremony before her. She had attended many official events, but each time she felt a deep sense of respect for the military and their dedication. The 41-gun salute was not just a display of power. It was a symbol of loyalty, history, and tradition. The second cannon fired, followed by the third. Each shot was perfectly timed, the sound sharp and commanding. The military band played a slow, solemn tune in the background, adding to the grandeur of the moment. The combination of music and gunfire created an atmosphere of deep respect and admiration. Captain James Harrow stood firm, his hands behind his back, as he watched the salute take place. He had been part of the military for many years, but moments like these still filled him with pride. His soldiers had trained for this day, and they were executing everything flawlessly. Beside him, Lieutenant Oliver Finch took a deep breath. He had never been this close to royalty before, and the experience was overwhelming. He kept his eyes straight ahead, focusing on his duty, but he couldn't help but steal a quick glance at the princess. She looked calm and graceful, completely at ease with the ceremony. The gun salute continued, each shot ringing through the air with precision. The gathered crowd outside the barracks watched in admiration. Many of them had never seen a royal salute in person before, and they were in awe of the display. Some held up their phones, capturing videos to remember the moment. Others simply watched, their faces reflecting the pride they felt for their country and its traditions. As the final cannon shot was fired, a deep silence fell over the barracks. The air was thick with the scent of gunpowder, but the moment felt sacred. The soldiers stood firm, waiting for the next command. The band played the final notes of their tune, the sound fading beautifully into the quiet. Then, with a slow, deliberate movement, Princess Catherine stepped forward. She turned toward the soldiers, her expression warm and appreciative. She knew how much effort had gone into this ceremony, how many hours of practice and discipline it had taken. For a moment, everything seemed to stand still. Then, she gave a graceful nod of approval. It was a simple gesture, but it carried great meaning. It was her way of acknowledging the hard work, the dedication, and the respect that had been shown to her today. Captain Harrow felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The salute had been a success. The princess was pleased, and Wellington Barracks had once again upheld its proud tradition. As the final echo of the 41-gun salute faded into the distance, a respectful silence filled Wellington Barracks. The air was still, heavy with the importance of the moment. The soldiers remained perfectly still, standing at attention, their chests filled with pride. They had done their duty, and the ceremony had gone exactly as planned. Princess Catherine took a step forward, her eyes scanning the disciplined formation of soldiers before her. There was warmth in her gaze, a silent appreciation for the effort and dedication they had displayed. She knew that behind this grand ceremony were months of preparation, hard work, and unwavering commitment. Captain James Harrow stood at the front, his posture strong and unwavering. He had been part of many royal events, but this one felt particularly special. There was something about Princess Catherine's presence that made the day feel more personal, more meaningful. As she approached, he felt a quiet sense of honor. Being able to stand before her and represent his unit was a moment he would never forget. Beside him, Lieutenant Oliver Finch felt his heart beating faster. He was still young in his military career, and this was the biggest event he had ever participated in. He had imagined this moment many times in his mind, but now that it was happening, it felt even more surreal. He reminded himself to stay calm, to maintain his discipline, but deep down, he felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Princess Catherine stopped a few steps away from Captain Harrow. With a graceful smile, she extended her hand. "Captain Harrow, thank you for this wonderful ceremony," she said in a warm, appreciative tone. Captain Harrow, maintaining his composure, took her hand respectfully. "It is an honor. Your Royal Highness, my team and I are proud to serve. Princess Catherine nodded, turning her attention to the soldiers behind him. She took a few moments to observe them closely, appreciating their discipline and dedication. Then she spotted Lieutenant Finch. His uniform was immaculate, his stance perfect, but there was something in his eyes that caught her attention, perhaps a mixture of determination and nervousness. She stepped toward him, offering a kind smile. "And you, Lieutenant, how did it feel to be part of today's ceremony?" Lieutenant Finch was taken by surprise. He hadn't expected to be addressed directly, but he quickly gathered his thoughts and responded in a steady voice. "It was an honor, Your Royal Highness, a moment I will remember forever." Princess Catherine's smile deepened. "You all have done a wonderful job today. Your discipline and precision are truly impressive." The soldiers stood even taller at her words. Praise from the royal family was not given lightly, and hearing such kind words from Princess Catherine filled them with an even stronger sense of purpose. The formal part of the ceremony was coming to an end, but the impact of this moment would stay with everyone at Wellington Barracks for a long time. After Princess Catherine's kind words, a soft murmur of pride passed through the soldiers, though they remained as disciplined as ever. The honor of having a member of the royal family personally acknowledge their efforts was something they would never forget. Princess Catherine continued to walk along the line of soldiers, taking her time to observe them closely. Each one stood tall, their uniforms crisp, their expressions filled with quiet determination. She understood the dedication it took to be part of such a prestigious unit. The long hours of training, the discipline, the sacrifices, it all came together in moments like this, where tradition and respect were displayed in their finest form. As she moved forward, a sudden gust of wind swept across the parade ground. It wasn't strong, but it was enough to knock a ceremonial hat off one of the soldiers standing in formation. For a brief moment, there was a pause in the air. The soldier, trained to remain completely still, didn't move to retrieve it. His training had taught him to stay in position no matter what. A few officers exchanged quick glances, unsure of how to react. Normally, such a thing would be considered a minor issue, but in front of royalty, every small detail mattered. The young soldier whose hat had fallen kept his posture rigid, unsure of what to do. Princess Catherine, noticing the situation, gave a small, understanding smile. Without hesitation, she stepped forward, bent down, and picked up the hat herself. She dusted it off lightly and handed it back to the soldier. "Here you go," she said gently. The soldier, momentarily surprised, quickly regained his composure and took the hat with a respectful nod. "Thank you, Your Royal Highness," he said, his voice steady but filled with gratitude. A few soft chuckles could be heard among the officers, and even Captain James Harrow allowed himself a small smile. The brief moment of tension had passed, and Princess Catherine's graceful response had turned it into something lighthearted. Lieutenant Oliver Finch, watching from the side, couldn't help but admire the way she had handled the situation. She had shown kindness without making the soldier feel embarrassed, and she had reminded everyone that even in the most formal of events, a bit of humanity was always welcome. The atmosphere in the barracks seemed to relax slightly after that. Though the soldiers still held their positions with discipline, there was a new sense of warmth in the air. Princess Catherine's presence wasn't just about formality, it was about connection, about making the people who served feel valued. As the visit continued, she took the time to speak with a few more soldiers, asking about their experiences, their training, and their families. She listened intently to each response, showing genuine interest in their lives. Captain Harrow watched all of this with quiet admiration. He had always believed that true leadership wasn't just about power, it was about respect and understanding. And today, he saw that Princess Catherine embodied that perfectly. The ceremony had been grand, the salute flawless, and Princess Catherine's presence had added warmth and dignity to the occasion. Yet, even as the formalities continued, there was a sense that this day was more than just a display of tradition. It was a reminder of the deep respect between the royal family and the armed forces. After speaking with several soldiers, Princess Catherine was escorted to a special area within the barracks. A beautifully arranged space had been set up for a private meeting with some of the officers and key members of the unit. This was a moment for her to engage more personally with those who had dedicated their lives to service. Captain James Harrow led the way, walking with a steady confidence that came from years of experience. Beside him, Lieutenant Oliver Finch followed, still feeling the weight of the important day. Though the nervousness had settled, he knew this moment was just as significant as the ceremony itself. Once inside the hall, Princess Catherine was seated at a long table where a few selected officers were invited to join her. The atmosphere was still formal, but there was an air of warmth that made everyone feel at ease. Tea was served, along with light refreshments, and for the first time that day, the soldiers allowed themselves to relax slightly. Princess Catherine, with her usual grace, initiated the conversation. "I must say, today's ceremony was truly remarkable. The discipline, the coordination, it was all executed perfectly." Captain Harrow responded with a respectful nod. "We take great pride in upholding these traditions, Your Royal Highness. It is an honor for us to have you here." She smiled and turned her attention to Lieutenant Finch. "Lieutenant, this was your first time taking part in such an event, wasn't it?" Oliver straightened slightly, surprised that she remembered. "Yes, Your Royal Highness. It was an incredible experience, one that I will never forget." She studied him for a moment before asking, "What inspired you to join the military?" The room fell silent as everyone waited for his answer. Oliver took a deep breath before replying. "My grandfather served in the army, Your Royal Highness. He always spoke about duty, honor, and service to the country. His stories inspired me to follow in his footsteps." Princess Catherine's expression softened. "That is truly admirable. I am sure he must be very proud of you." A quiet moment followed, filled with an unspoken understanding. For all the discipline and formality, there was a human side to every soldier, a story, a reason, a deep sense of purpose that drove them forward. The conversation continued, touching on the soldiers' daily routines, their training, and their personal experiences. Princess Catherine listened attentively, showing genuine interest in their lives. She wasn't just here as a royal figure. She was here as someone who cared, someone who understood the sacrifices they made. As the meeting went on, it became clear that this visit would be remembered not just for the grand salute, but for the personal connections made on this special day. As the formal meeting continued, the atmosphere grew even more comfortable. Princess Catherine's genuine interest in the lives of the soldiers made them feel seen and appreciated. Each officer who spoke felt honored to share their experiences, knowing that their words truly mattered to her. After a while, an officer stood up and presented a special token of appreciation to the princess. It was a beautifully crafted plaque, engraved with the emblem of Wellington Barracks and a message of gratitude for her visit. Captain James Harrow stepped forward and spoke on behalf of his unit. "Your Royal Highness, it has been an immense honor to welcome you here today. Your presence means a great deal to all of us, and we would like to present you with this token of our appreciation." Princess Catherine accepted the plaque with a warm smile. "Thank you, Captain. This truly means a lot to me. I will always remember the warmth and dedication I have seen here today." A round of polite applause followed, and for a brief moment, everyone felt a sense of unity that went beyond titles and ranks. This was not just a royal visit. It was a moment of respect and gratitude shared between those who serve and those who recognize their sacrifices. Soon after, it was time for Princess Catherine to take her leave. The soldiers once again lined up in perfect formation as she stepped outside. The sky was clear, the afternoon sun casting a golden glow over the barracks. It was as if even the weather was honoring this special occasion. As she walked toward her car, she took a final moment to look at the disciplined soldiers before her. She knew that behind each uniform was a story, a life dedicated to service, and a heart full of courage. She gave them one last graceful nod, and in unison, they saluted her once more. Captain Harrow stood tall, watching as she entered her vehicle. Lieutenant Oliver Finch felt a deep sense of pride. This day had changed something in him. He had started the morning feeling nervous, but now he felt more confident, more connected to the values of service and honor. As the royal motorcade slowly drove away, the soldiers remained standing, their expressions filled with pride. The sound of the car's engine faded into the distance, but the memory of this visit would stay with them forever. For Wellington Barracks, this had been more than just a ceremony. It had been a day of respect, tradition, and personal connection. And for Princess Catherine, it was another reminder of the strength and dedication of the people who served the nation. As the gates closed behind her car, the soldiers finally stood at ease. Some exchanged quiet smiles, others took a deep breath, still processing the significance of the moment. And somewhere in the hearts of those who had been there that day, they knew they had been part of something truly special, something that would be remembered for years to come.